I did tell you guys that a nerve is a bundle of PNS axons. A ganglion is a bundle of PNS cell bodies, neuron cell bodies. So they're connected. You can't have a ganglion without a nerve. You can't have a nerve without a ganglion. The cell body is connected to the axon. So a bundle of axons in the PNS, the nerve, and the bundle of their cell bodies would form a ganglion. So this shows spinal cord, spinal nerves, and ganglia as well. You know how many, and guys remember how many pairs of spinal nerves there are? 31. All 31 are on here. There are also 12 pairs of cranial nerves attached to the brain. That's a later lab. I'm not doing that today. You're welcome. All right. So what do we have? We have an anterior view of the spinal cord. Starts here. This is the superior end, the spinal cord. Travel all the way down to here. Notice how it tapers to an end right there. Comes to a point right there. That's the end of the spinal cord. Look where we are. We're just a little bit inferior to the 12th pair of ribs right there. We're actually right around L2. So the spinal cord in an adult comes to a point, comes to an end right around the L2 vertebra, the second lumbar vertebra. The rest of the vertebral foramina, the remaining vertebral column, we've got strands of spinal nerves traveling through those remaining lumbar and sacrum and vertebrae and the sacrum. Okay. This groove in the center really is not a groove at all. It's a deep gash called the anterior median fissure. It really folds into the front of the spinal cord. So the spinal cord folds in like that in front. So you get this anterior median fissure going deep into the front of the spinal cord. So that's the clue, it's one of the clues that tells me that this is an anterior view. All right. So that would mean this is the left side, this is the right side. Okay. Now, the inferior end of the spinal cord, where it tapers to a point, that's called the conus medullaris. It actually does form a cone-shaped structure, like an ice cream cone bottom here. The conus medullaris there. And then you've got all these spinal nerves. And all these spinal nerves, there, etc. Then when you get to the conus medullaris, all of a sudden they're just hanging, all these strands hanging here off the conus medullaris. Nearly all but one, are spinal nerves hanging down here. So this collection of strands is called the cauda equina. Cauda equina is Latin for the horse's tail, the tail of the horse. So you've got this horse's tail, mainly of spinal nerves dangling off the conus medullaris, the end of the spinal cord. Okay, so what else do we need to point out? Let's point out ganglia, then we'll do our spinal nerve count, etc. Ganglia. There are two types of ganglia shown on this model and also shown on that model over there, the same two. They are the dorsal root ganglia, they are on your objectives list, dorsal root ganglia, and I added sympathetic chain ganglia on the board. So your objectives page already has dorsal root ganglia, and I added sympathetic chain ganglia over here. So, the dorsal root ganglia are the most medial of all ganglia. They're the closest to the midline of all ganglia. So you get oriented, you know where to look for them. You keep going in as close to the midline as you can. That's where you're going to find them. The next lateral, the next ones you would come upon farther out from the midline would be the sympathetic chain ganglia. And the even more lateral ganglia, they're not on here. We're not even going to mention their names. We don't want to add to any confusion already here. So the two most medial types are on here. The most medial would be the dorsal root ganglia, and here they are. See this little pink bulge here, this pink bulge here, here, here. There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there, etc. Going all the way down here. All these little pink bulges you see in here. They are all dorsal root ganglia. And they are part, or I should say, they contain the cell bodies of afferent neurons, sensory, conducting to the CNS. They are sensory. They contain the cell bodies of afferent or afferent sensory neurons. On the other hand, take a look at these. So these again are really close to the spinal cord. But what about these guys? These are more lateral. These are farther away. These are sympathetic chain ganglia here. So each one, there's one sympathetic chain ganglion. Here's another. Here's another. Here's another. These ganglia contain these cell bodies of efferent neurons, motor neurons, exiting from the central nervous system. So the types of cell bodies are of completely different neurons, sensory and motor. So what about the actual spinal nerves? I think you guys remember that when you break down the vertebral column, you've got 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, etc., vertebrae. Well, the counts are similar, but not identical when it comes to the spinal nerves. There are actually 8 pairs of cervical spinal nerves, labeled C1 through C8. Remember, there are 7 cervical vertebrae, but there are 8 pairs of cervical spinal nerves. There are 12 pairs of thoracic, 5 pairs of lumbar, 5 pairs of sacral, and 1 coccygeal pair. So you add that up, 8, 12, 5, 5, 1, there's your 31. Now let's take a look at them. Let's find them on here. Guys, might want to get closer because some of these things are quite small. Might want to lean in here. All right, so we have the atlas. We have the atlas right here. Here's the atlas cut away. It's been sectioned. And by the way, you see that thing with an X on it? That's a cranial nerve. That's actually the vagus nerve right there. That's a cranial nerve. But none of the spinal nerves have any Roman numerals stamped on them. None of the spinal nerves are associated with Roman numerals. So, curving directly over the atlas right there, this little white line curving right over top the atlas right there. That is the left C1 spinal nerve, the first cervical spinal nerve coming out. Here's the second coming out there. Here's the third coming out here. And by the way, here's a very good thing to be aware of. The nerve actually starts lateral to the ganglion. So that little pink ganglion, those are the dorsal root ganglia. The nerve proper begins immediately past or immediately lateral to the ganglion. So we have C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, C7, and C8. You see C8 extends out above the very first rib. There's the first rib. There's C8. There's the ganglion. There's the nerve. So this ganglion is associated with what nerve? What would this be? What's the next nerve going to be? We finished cervicals. Thoracic, number 1. T1. Thoracic 1. All right, so it's T1, left side, so left T1, T2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And there's the ganglion, there's T12, right there, under the last pair of ribs. So T1 under the first rib, T12 under the last rib, rib 12. All right, so there's T12, left side T12. Now we come to the 5 lumbar pairs, L1 through L5. So there is left L1, there's the ganglion, and the nerve is lateral to that. There's left L2, there's the ganglion, there's L2, L3, L4, and L5. There's the ganglion, there's L5. So, I can slide this down. All right, so we can get to the 5 sacrals. I might want to lean in here, guys, lean forward here, because all of a sudden we go in. So there's left L5, and that would be left S1, ganglion nerve, left S2, S3, S4, and right in there is S5. See, it's got a little black smudge on it. There's left S5, the 5th sacral. There is the right one over here. So there's the pair. There's the left one, there's the right one. They are forming a pair. And the last pair of nerves, this one here is on the left side, this one here on the right side, would be the 1 coccygeal pair, the single coccygeal pair, coccygeal 1, right there. That's pair number 31. But look at this. In between the coccygeal pair, the very last pair of nerves, is this central strand, is this midline strand. This midline strand is not a nerve at all. It's pia mater. Pia mater shrink wraps the spinal cord. And here's what it does. Going all the way back up, pia mater would shrink wrap the entire spinal cord. And when the spinal cord ends with the conus medullaris, the pia mater doesn't end. The pia mater continues as this midline strand. See right there with the little smudge up? That's pia mater coming all the way down the center of the cauda equina, going all the way down to and attaching to the coccyx. It actually fuses, it anchors to the coccyx right there, the last of the vertebral column. So that pia mater strand is called the filum terminale. That's one of your added terms. It should be up there on the board, filum terminale. Outside the pia mater is arachnoid mater, not shown on here. Outside the arachnoid mater is dura mater, the outermost of the three meninges. That is shown on here. So the dura mater is shown by this curving white line. This curving white line there. This curving white line is dura mater. Follow that all the way down. But I want to follow it to its logical conclusion. I'll just jump ahead to its logical conclusion here. See this white U? This U-shaped sac or U-shaped bag right here? This white U? That's the dural sac. That's the end of the dura mater. So the dura mater ends, bottoms out as the dural sac. Here's the point. Filum terminale interna versus externa. So from the conus medullaris, that pia mater strand from the conus medullaris to the dural sac, that's the filum terminale interna. So it extends beyond the dural sac to the coccyx. So this last portion from dural sac to coccyx is the filum terminale externa. And it does indeed anchor to the coccyx. It holds everything nice and steady on the midline. And on either side of it, you've got a bunch of spinal nerves, collectively called the cauda equina, the horse's tail. Questions for me? Surely there are questions.
You said the internal filum terminale is the inner
It's from
portion?
it's from the conus medullaris to the dural sac. And then the externa goes from the dural sac to the coccyx. Okay?
So, if I got you correct,